This is the Google Sheets Review 2 assignment, and in this assignment we are going to talk about functions. So in spreadsheets you hear a lot about formulas and functions, but a formula is an equation designed by a user in a spreadsheet. So an example would be equals A1 plus A2 plus A3. So that's how you would find the sum of those three cells. A function is a predefined calculation in a spreadsheet. So it's already been created for you. An example of that function would be equals sum of A1 through A3. So you don't have to type out the whole formula. You can just use that predefined function. So you're going to see a set of directions here. It starts with number 1 and then it goes to letters. So number 1 is going to correspond with sheet 1, and then number 2 will correspond with sheet 2, number 3 will correspond with sheet 3, and then number 4 will correspond with sheet number 4. And of course, you do have a copy of this Google Sheet, and this is sheet 1 that says math, this is sheet 2 that says common, sheet 3 that says cool, and then sheet 4 that says delete this sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work through these directions now, and you can either go through the written directions yourself or you can watch the video to complete them. So on this first sheet, we are going to work on math functions. So you'll see the names of the functions across row 2, and then I have in row 10 a bright green box. That's where you're going to type out your function or put your function. So in row B, the function is sum. So what that is telling us to do is add up all the numbers in column B. So what we're going to do is we're going to click inside B10, that cell, and then we're going to go up to our toolbar, click on functions, and you'll see sum. Now you'll see the function is equals sum, and then we have parentheses. And what it's basically asking us is what do you want to add up? So I'm just going to click and drag from cell B3 down to B9 and hit enter. And you'll notice I now see 255.9. If I put my cursor, if I click on that cell and go up to my formula bar, it shows my function. It doesn't show that number. So that's what I should see when I'm grading your paper or grading your sheet. I should not just see you typing it in. You need to use the actual function. The second one is average. So again, I'm going to put my cursor in C10, go up to functions, find average, and then click and drag from cell C3 to C9 and hit enter. You'll notice my average right now, it goes to 36.56. Yours is probably going to look something like this, where it goes beyond the cell. And what I did, I had the same thing. So what I did, I clicked on it, and then I went up to decrease decimal places, and I just kept clicking decrease until I got to just the 100th place, so 36.56. The next function is count. So I am going to click on D10 and count. What that does is it counts how many values are in the cells. So if I go up to functions, I see count. There is another way to add these, and you can go ahead and in your cell, if you type equals and then start typing count, you'll see all the functions that have the word or the letters count in them. So this is the one I want. And then again, I'm just going to click and drag over my data set. I need to add my other parenthesis here and click enter. And it shows me that there are 7 values or 7 numbers in here. Next is max. So again, you can click on your functions or you can just start typing them in. MAX, and this is going to be the maximum value in this data set. And the maximum value is 91.5. And I can just double check quick, and that's true. There's no higher value than that. Minimum is going to be equals MIN, and then click and drag and hit enter. Product. So product is the answer to a multiplication problem. So if I go equals product, the result of multiplying a series of numbers together, and then I click and drag over these. I already know that if I multiply all these, it's going to be a really large number. So this number is so large it doesn't really fit in the cell. Let's go ahead and make this cell a little bit wider so we can try to fit that whole number in. So that looks a little bit better there. One other thing we can do, it's kind of tough to read what that number is because there's no commas. So if I stay clicked on that cell I can go up to format number, and I can format it with a number, and then you'll see when I do that, it adds some commas. It did take up a little bit more space. So instead of changing the cell width, I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make my font smaller. So I changed it to size 14, but now I can see the number a little bit easier because I have commas there. So I can tell that it's, so this would be thousands, millions, billions, 5.7 billion, just a little bit over that. Next is quotient. And quotient is going to be the answer to multiple or division problems. So equals quotient, one number divided by another. So to do this one, it's a little bit different. I'm not just going to click and drag. I'm going to click on one cell, and then I need to put a comma. So I'm going to type a comma, and then what do I want to divide that one? By this number, by H4, and then add a parenthesis. So basically what this is saying is 99 divided by 33. So 99 divided by 33 is 3. Next, we are going to do a function called COUNTIF. So what this means for COUNTIF, it's only going to count the numbers that meet a certain criteria. So let's go ahead and start it, and I'll kind of explain it as we go. So COUNTIF, and then I'm going to click and drag over the data set. And now looking up at my formula bar, we need to add this yet. So COUNTIF, a comma, a space, and then we're going to do parentheses. So I'm only going to count the number if it is less than 50. And then I have to put another comma, or excuse me, another quotation mark, and then my parenthesis. So what this is saying, if I look at this function, count all the numbers in there that are less than 50. So I'm going to hit enter, and it says 3. Well, I can go through and count quick. 21 is less than 50, 15.8 is less than 50, and 45 is less than 50. So it should be 3. So again, that's counting if the numbers were less than 3. So now these SUMIF are going to be the same, but we're not counting the numbers anymore. We're adding them up. We're going to find the sum. So equals SUMIF, and we'll use that same 50. So I'm going to click and drag over my data set, comma, space, quotation, less than 50, quotation, parenthesis, enter. So what this means is all the numbers in this data set that are less than 50 have been added up. So one way to check this, right here, let's say I change this 56, let's say I change it to 57. It should not change my number below, and it doesn't. But if I change it to 45, it should change the number below. It does. So it's only adding up the numbers that are less than 50. So this one is going to be the same thing, but we're only going to add up the numbers that are greater than 50. So equals SUMIF, click and drag over my data set, comma, space, quotation, and now I'm going to do greater than 50, quotation, parenthesis. So these, all the numbers that are greater than 50 here add up to 147.5. So we are finished with this first sheet. So the next thing we're going to do is click on the second sheet, which says comment. Now, some of these are still math, but these are other common functions that we might use in Google Sheets. So we're going to use the COUNTIF again, but now we don't have numbers, we have words. So we're only going to count the numbers if they say the word red. So equals COUNTIF, and then we're going to click and drag over the data set like before, comma, space, quotation, and then we're going to type in red. And it doesn't matter if it's capital or lowercase. And we're going to do another quotation, parenthesis, and hit enter. So what this is saying, we're counting all the values in here that say red. And I can look through, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. So 3 is correct. Now we're going to SUMIF. Now you'll notice I have a gray cell here. That means we don't need to put anything here. We're going to put our function over here. So SUMIF, we're going to only add up the values that are next to a box that says red or a cell that says red. So this one's going to look like this: equals, and then SUMIF. We're going to click and drag over the words first. So C3 to C9. Then we're going to hit comma, and then we need to do our space, our quotes. We're going to type in red again. We need another comma, and then we're going to add them up. We're going to add up the numbers that go in this column. So D3 to D9. Let's go ahead and put a parenthesis and hit enter. So what this is saying is it's only adding up the values that have red next to it. So that'd be 56 plus 3.2 plus 45, plus 23.4. So just to make it simple, I'm going to change this to 3 instead of 3.2 and change this to 23. You'll notice my number down there now changes to 82. So it does change when I change the values of red, showing me that it's only adding up the red ones and nothing else. The next function is called today. And basically what we can do here is we can type equals today, and then we're going to just put 2 parentheses and hit enter. And it's going to put today's date. So I am doing this assignment on March 1st of 2022. So that's why it put that date there. If you do it on a different day, it should put whatever date it is when you complete the assignment. Next, it says a week ago. So we're going to do the same thing, equals today, but now we're trying to figure out what the date was 7 days ago. So I'm going to go equals today, parentheses, and then after the parentheses, I'm going to put -7 because there are 7 days in a week. And it says a week ago, it was 2/22/22. For the next one, we are going to find out what day of the month it is. So this one's going to be a little bit different. We're going to type in equals day, and then we're going to put our parenthesis, but we need to click on the cell of what data set are we trying to figure out the day, and that's going to be E10. So after you type in E10, hit enter, and it says 1, because today is the first day of March. So I'm going to scroll over. We're going to do the same thing with month now. So the function is going to be equal month. I'm going to click back to E10, hit enter, and it says 3 because the month of the year is March, which is the 3rd month. The last one is going to be equals year, parenthesis, E10, and then what year is it? It is 2022. So if you have all those, you are finished with the common page. So then we're going to go ahead and click on cool. On the cool sheet, we're just going to do a couple more functions. And as you look through the functions, you'll see there are just a ton of functions here. So it would be kind of impossible for us to go through all of them. I'm just getting some of the ones that we're going to use most often, but feel free to explore as many as you want. So the next function we're going to do is called split. And what this is going to do, it's going to split a value from a cell into 2 different cells. So I'm going to type in equals split, and then I need to click on what cell I want to split. So that's going to be B3. After I type B3, I need a comma. And now this is where it gets a little different. So I'm going to hit a space, and then I'm going to do a parenthesis, and I'm going to do another space, not a parenthesis, a quotation mark. And then I'm going to do a space in between my quotes. So what this means, and I'll show you, when I hit enter, it takes the name George Washington, puts George into C, and puts Washington into D. And if you look up at my function, I had to put this empty space between in split between my quotation marks, because there's a split or an empty space between George and Washington. So that's how I knew to break up George and break up Washington. Let's say, for example, I had a dash between George and Washington. You'll notice it changes it. It's no longer correct. In order to get that correct, I would have to put a dash between my quotes to get them to spread that out. So I'm going to go back, take out the dash, keep the space, but that's why, again, on my function, I have a space between my quotes. Now that I have that, I can put my cursor back in the box that says George, and you can see there's a little blue square. So I can copy this by dragging it down, and it will add all the names. You can also do this. Click on the box, and instead of clicking and dragging, you can just double click on the little blue box when your cursor changes to a plus sign. So double click, and it's going to change all the rest. So Susan, Anthony, Malcolm Little, Rosa Parks, Cesar Chavez, Mr. Kunston, Bob Wiley are all filled in the rest of the green spaces now. Next, we're going to go and we're going to sort. So we're going to sort the numbers that are in column E. So to do that, I'm going to put my cursor in F, and my function is going to be equals sort. And then I'm going to click and drag over E3 to E9 and hit enter. And when I do that, it sorts those numbers in column E, but it sorts them in column F, and it puts them in order from least to greatest. All right, the last thing we're going to do, you'll see in column J, J3, J4, and J5, we're going to do something. So give me 1 second, I'll show you that. So what we're doing in these three green cells is we're going to concatenate, and what that means is link together. And you'll notice I have just a bunch of random words here. So we're going to concatenate these, but I have a specific way of doing it, and it should give you a message if you do it correctly. So the function that I'm going to use is going to be equals, and then we'll start typing concatenate out, and here it is. And now this is going to be a little tricky. So the first cell that I want to kind of combine is going to be G3. If I type in G3, you could also click on cell G3, and then I need a comma, a space, and then I'm going to put a quote, a space, and a quote. And what this is going to do, it's going to put a space between the words that I'm putting together. And then a comma, and then I7, comma, quote, space, quote, comma, H4, parenthesis, and then hit enter. And when you do that, it says hop on pop. And now it says autofill. Well, we don't want to autofill because I don't have a set pattern. It's kind of random. So I'm going to go ahead and do my next one now. Okay, I finished my next two, and I'm going to click on those to show you the function that I used. So for cell J4, it was equals concatenate parenthesis I3, comma, space, quotation, space, quotation, comma, space, and if this space isn't there, it'll still work. G6, quote, space, quote, comma, H8. And when you hit enter, that should say let it go. And then the final one is concatenate I5, quotations, I9, quotations, G8. And that should say seize the day. The last thing we're going to do, this fourth sheet right here says delete this sheet. So to delete a sheet that you have, all you need to do is right click on it, on the name here, and go to delete, and then OK. So now you should just have three. You should have math, common, and cool. And if all your green is filled in, that means you are finished. You can go ahead and submit your assignment.